This is Chapter 12, Guided Notes on Quadratics. It's really comprised of a couple other sections that we skipped that fit better with the topics in Chapter 12. We've talked a little bit about quadratics. You're going to learn more about quadratics throughout this chapter and then even more in college algebra. So the first topic I want to talk about is from section 9.4 in your textbook. It's on solving quadratics by factoring with some applications. And as always, scratch paper is always handy if you ever need it. So we already know how to solve quadratics that are set equal to 0. So we've done this in Chapter 10 and we've done it in Chapter 11 as well. We move all the terms to one side and then we factor. So I'm going to do this on my scratch paper so I don't run out of room. We have 2x squared plus 9x minus 5. Always good to label your scratch paper. We have A, B, and C. The one skill college algebra instructors always request is that you're able to factor. So we've practiced a lot. You should be very efficient at factoring by the end of this course. So then we do our grouping. Here we'll take out a -1. And so this factors into 2x minus 1 and x plus 5. They each equal 0, so we have two answers. And you'll learn a little bit more about why there's two answers when you get to college algebra. You should get x equals 1/2 and x equals -5. So with quadratics, you almost always get two answers. If you want to go ahead and try this again, you can pause the video and try it on your own. I'll factor this one over here. A, B, and C. -24 and +10. That would be 12 and -2. And we'll do our grouping. So that should factor into 3x minus 2 and x plus 4. They both equal 0. So again, you have two answers. So you should get x equals 2/3 or x equals -4. The highest power on your polynomial determines the number of answers. That's a general rule. If it's linear, you usually have one answer. If it's quadratic, you have two. You're going to get into cubic functions that are to the third power. They would normally have 3 answers. Fourth power would have 4 answers, etc. So that kind of helps you know how many answers you should expect. There are a few exceptions in there, but that's generally how it works. So sometimes they're already factored for us. So you'll see a few in the homework and you're like, what do I need to do here? Well, they've already been factored and they're already set equal to 0. So they've basically done that part for you and it's already ready to solve. So this would be x equals 0 and x plus 5 equals 0. So x equals 0 is already done. And this one would be x equals -5. Same idea here, it's already factored. So we have x plus 2 equals 0, which means x equals -2. And then x minus 6 equals 0, which means x equals +6. So it's really nice if it's already factored and already set equal to 0, you can just do the easy part. X plus 8 equals 0, so x equals -8. And then 2x minus 5 equals 0, so x equals 5/2. Just simple linear solving there. Sometimes it's a little more complicated, and they're not set equal to 0 yet. So they have to be set equal to 0. That's very important for quadratics. You saw that in Chapter 10 and 11. We have to get all the terms to one side anytime we see quadratics. So here we're not there yet. It looks like it's already factored, but it's set equal to 4, and that's not going to cut it. So we're going to have to multiply this back in. we'll get 2x squared minus 7x equals 4. Then we'll have to move the 4 over. That'll give us 2x squared minus 7x minus 4 equals 0. And then we'll do our factoring. So I always like to do that on a separate sheet of paper. So set up our chart. It's -8 and -7. So -8 and +1. So 2x squared minus 8x plus x minus 4. Do our grouping. You really don't need the equal 0 for this part. We're just trying to factor. Let's see, that'll be 2x and x minus 4. This will just be +1 and x minus 4. So this one factors, oops, where am I? Right here. This one factors into 2x plus 1 and x minus 4 equals 0. So that's how we get our two answers. You should get x equals -1/2 or x equals 4. This takes a little bit more work up front to get it set equal to 0. That's the most important part. Put everything on one side. Same thing here. We have x cubed equals 2x squared plus 3x. You always want to find the highest power and move everything to that side so that your leading coefficient is positive. So I'm going to subtract 2x squared and subtract 3x, and that's going to give me x to the third minus 2x squared minus 3x equals 0. There is a GCF on this one. Let me divide that. There's a GCF of x, and then that leaves me with x squared minus 2x minus 3. So one of our answers is already isolated. We already have x. Then from there we're going to factor. This is pretty easy to factor. It should be -3 and +1 equals 0. And let me rewrite that up here so I have more space. So we're going to have 3 answers. Notice it's to the third power, and that's where we're getting 3 answers from. Should get x equals 0 from that one. You should get x equals 3 from the middle, and x equals -1 from the last binomial. So there's 3 separate answers. Every one of them will work when you plug them in. And that's one way to see how many answers you should get, is to find that highest power. Alright, sometimes they're just a mess. They just give you terms all over the place that has a lot of cleaning up to do. I encourage you to pause the video and try to clean this one up as much as you can, and then get it factored and solve it, and then play back and see how well you did. So I'm going to draw a line there. So we'll distribute 3x squared plus 12 plus 5. Distribute -6x squared minus 12x plus 13. Then we're going to move some things around. We want to keep the highest powered coefficient positive. So I'm going to add 6x squared to both sides. And we're going to move everything over also to that side. So we have 9x squared. The 12 and the 5 make plus 17 equals -12x plus 13. So we want to move the 12x and the 13 to the other side. I did not give myself enough space. That gives us 9x squared plus 12x plus 4 equals 0. So subtracting 13 and adding 12x. So from here, we want to factor. Again, scratch paper is helpful. We have 9x squared plus 12x plus 4. A, B, and C. 36 and 12. So we have 9x squared plus 6x plus 6x again plus 4. Take out a 3x. That leaves, whoops. That leaves 3x plus 2. We'll take out a 2. That also leaves 3x plus 2. So this factors into 3x plus 2 times 3x plus 2. It's the same binomial twice, If you remember when we were talking about factoring in Chapter 9, if you get the same number twice here, you're going to get the same binomial twice here. So this is one situation where there's only one answer. It's a unique situation. It's called a perfect square trinomial. That's when 3x plus 2 equals 0, so you only get one answer, x equals negative 2/3. Alright. Couple more to practice here, and then we'll go to the applications. So some of these can be a little deceptive, at least I find them deceptive. Here, at least at my eyes, it looks like it's already factored, and I think students do the same thing. Oh man, back-to-back binomials, it's already factored. But the problem here is that it's not set equal to 0. And that's a problem. It has to be set equal to 0. It can be factored all day long, but if it's not set equal to 0, it's not going to help us. So we actually have to multiply these back together. Let's do that. It would be 2x squared plus 4x minus x minus 2 equals 3. So that's 2x squared plus 3x minus 2 equals 3. Then we'll move that 3 over to set it equal to 0. So the first thing we did is we FOILed them back together. We set it equal to 0. We get 2x squared plus 3x minus 5 equals 0. The equals 0 is your target to know that it's ready to factor. So it's time to factor after that. We get 2x squared plus 3x minus 5. Get our factoring done. So 2x squared plus 5x minus 2x minus 5. I know I'm working these a little quick here. We should be really good at this part, so I'm not as worried about you seeing me through that. You should be able to do that part yourself. So this factors into x minus 1 and 2x plus 5. And so your answer should be x equals 1 and x equals negative 5 over 2. You set each piece equal to 0 and solve. I encourage you to pause the video and try the next one on your own, see how you do. Same procedure here, we're going to have to FOIL these together because it's not set equal to 0. That should give us x squared minus 5x minus 36 equals 4x. Then we'll move 4x to the other side. We'll get x squared minus 9x minus 36 equals 0. And then we'll factor that. Should factor into x minus 12 and x plus 3. So if you want to make a side note, this was factoring, this was FOIL, that was set equal to 0. And from there we get our answers, x equals 12 and x equals negative 3. So we should be able to solve any quadratic, no matter which form it comes in. We should be able to get it organized, get it set equal to 0, get it factored, and get our answers. And like I said, most of the time you get 2 answers. Every now and then you get a perfect square trinomial, which only gives you 1 answer. I'm going to pause there and record the applications in a separate video.